I call this meeting of the Ocean Highway and Port Authority together for May 10th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Please stand for the invocation.
Gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we do thank you for this day that you blessed us with. We thank you for this great country that we live in. We just pray now, Lord, that you would give us wisdom and discernment in all that we do tonight, and that may bring honor and glory to you. We ask that you watch over our first responders, our servicemen and women. Please protect them, and we ask all this in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Did you join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call.
Commissioner Taylor.
Here.
Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
Commissioner Cole.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Hill. Here. Chairman Fullwood.
Present.
And Mr. Krasinski is absent.
Yes. He's at Leadership Duval. He's doing a speech there tonight. It's what day it is for them, but that's where he is. Okay. No comments from the audience?
None.
All right, let's go to approval of minutes for April 12th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion? I found only the one thing that you need to change. And I told you about what that is. So,
Yes.
any others? Anybody find?
What's the change?
It's in number 8 under new business. She said there were new business items submitted. Should be there were no new business items. That's the only thing I can find. Minor stuff.
I will change.
Maybe will. All right. All in favor of accepting the minutes as corrected, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay. Our port attorney is not here, but he's asked me to read a couple of things, and I'm going to do that now. And this is about the operating agreement, section 6.2. Says, due to my absence from tonight's meeting, I am submitting this request for board consideration. No formal vote is necessary. Please do not discuss the merits, status, or posture of the active litigation. As you know, 6.2 of the operating agreement requires the port operator to make two $50,000 contributions to the Port Authority for the years 2019 and 2020, respectively, toward the annual DRI. Payments due from the Port Authority to the city of Fernandina Beach. Commonly, these payments are part of the disputed pilot payments being litigated with the city. In September of 2022, the port operator, through its attorney, informed OPA that the two payments required by section 6.2 were placed in an escrow account held by the law firm. More recently, it has come to our attention that the two payments were not placed in escrow by the previous operator. I am requesting consensus from the board to issue written demand to the port operator for payment to OPA of the required contributions as set forth in section 2.2 of the operating agreement. And as you know, that was the time when the previous operator was here, and the payments were to be kept in escrow, and they agreed to do that. And I'll read you here this is from Jimerson Burr, previous attorney for the operator. Nassau Terminals will await the resolution of the city case and stand ready to release its two $50,000 contributions out of escrow to reimburse OPA for pilot expenditures for the years 2019 and 2020 if required. Jimerson is saying now they do not have that in escrow, and that's part of the case, so I'm gonna end that right there and not say anything further about that. All right, the next thing. From Patrick, it says, due to my absence from tonight's meeting, I am submitting this request for board consideration. No formal vote is necessary. Please do not discuss the merits, status, or posture of the active litigation. I am requesting board consensus to provide Savage Services Incorporated as port operator with written notice of its obligation to indemnify OPA pursuant to the bond loan agreement language in the property appraiser litigation. And if nobody has any objection with that, we will execute that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
a question regarding the first one.
Uh-huh.
So 3 years ago, the port operator at that time were supposed to those dollars were supposed to go into the escrow account then.
To an escrow account held by his attorney.
So now, fast forward, we have a brand new operator and we're putting this responsibility on them.
Yes.
But how is it?
I don't want to get into too much about that, but what Patrick is saying is they bought the operating agreement. And it says in the operator agreement that 6.2 that they paid the pilot payments. We paid the city and then he reimburses us for that.
But our previous operator is their money that went into this escrow account. So now we're telling the new operator, hey, guess what? We want you to put $100,000 into this account.
Well, Jimerson Burr is supposed to be holding that in escrow. That's what they've told us in that letter they wrote to us.
Excuse
In
me, Commissioner,
2021.
you're not supposed to discuss that.
Well, I can discuss the part about Jimerson Burr, but not the
I don't
case.
know how we're supposed to get a consensus if we can't discuss it.
Yeah, I can't agree. I can't agree to this portion right here, so 6.2.
Well, I think what you need to do is call Patrick and talk to him about it.
But Patrick still needs us to have consensus, at least a majority. I mean,
Yes, and we don't have to vote on it. Doesn't have to be a formal vote, but
We can do that through his phone conversations
yeah.
to us.
So you can call him and give him your consensus or tell him no. And he'll have a consensus then. I don't want to do it here.
the purchase of the assets and the obligations of the old operator basically transferred those obligations to the new operator.
Yes.
So the benefits and the burdens convey.
Go with it.
And we didn't see that agreement, and so if they didn't, then this would flush that out. As to where the funds are, because they are entrusted to the operator, they're held in the escrow agreement. Until OPA incurs the pilot payment cost. And we can't settle our claim with the city if we don't have the funds to settle the claim. So we can't make an offer to settle the pilot dispute, whatever that would be.
That may be part of the settlement. Yes.
Yeah, we can't do that unless we have the funds. At least we would need to be able to point to an escrow account where the funds are. The two payments, those $50,000 payments were put in escrow or were purportedly put in escrow because those were two undisputed. I don't know if I can say undisputed, but those were two accruing payments prior to the initiation of the suit. And so I think that's correct. And so that's why we asked that they were either remitted to OPA or put in escrow.
I think it's best that you call Patrick and he can give you the full details of why this is the way it is and what he's trying to do.
So what's your objection?
Well, but I guess it's just putting that responsibility on the new operator when it's something that the previous operator didn't do. And I know the new operator's done. I mean, they've come in and done so much already. And it's like, here we go now saying, hey, now we need you to put this into here so we can settle this. And believe me, I want the case to be settled, and it's just trying to figure out the responsible party for these funds is what's giving me a little bit of issue here. But I do understand, and Commissioner Hill, I think, put it very well. The best way I think an attorney, sitting up here right now can, and so I appreciate that, but I'll call Patrick in the morning.
Yeah, he could fit
I mean, the
in.
question is just, if not the operator, then who?
I agree. I understand. I agree.
Because 6.2 requires the operator, whoever that is, who signed the agreement, the operator to remit the funds for the pilot payment. Like, they have to remit it if it's incurred. We didn't actually pay the city of Bernardino for those 2 years. So the operator took the position that they didn't have an obligation to pay us those funds until we actually paid the city.
Right.
So it's an obligation of the operator to remit the funds. The funds were, according to the lawyer, put in escrow. So I mean, I don't know how else we would demand the funds to be paid.
There's some things I can't tell you here that Patrick can tell you in a private conversation. So call him and he can fill you in, and I'm sure you'll see it a
I'll
little,
do that.
you'll see it a little differently.
You don't, I mean,
I know what
be
you're saying.
the full, and so just
I
want
know.
to, since it's for everybody else.
And I don't want the current operator to have to do that, but, when they bought the operating agreement, they bought the whole car. And that was part of it. So that's the end of the conversation now, and like I say, call Patrick. Or I'll have him call you. Call him at your convenience. Okay,
Do we have consensus from the rest of the board? Just so that Patrick can do what he needs to do. I think we have 4 commissioners that very.
for a meeting. All right. The next thing, due to my absence from tonight's meeting, I'm submitting this request for board consideration. No formal vote is necessary. Please do not discuss the merit, status, or posture of the active litigation. I am requesting consensus to provide Savage Services as port operator with written notice of its obligation to indemnify OPA pursuant to the bond loan agreement language in the property appraiser litigation. Okay. All right, those are the things he wanted me to read you, plus one other thing. Okay. This is from Patrick. Given that we are approaching the 1-year anniversary of Savage Services taking over as port operator, I would like to request that Butch and his team put together a 1-year update for the board. I would like this update to include all aspects of the port's operations, including revenue, liabilities, customers, equipment inventory, repairs performed and repairs needed, and all other similar items. I would like to see a full description of what Savage has been doing over the past year, including any safety improvements, lessons learned, and employee retention and training. In a recent call with Savage team, we discussed the idea of this 1-year anniversary update, and Savage also felt this would be a good opportunity to inform the full board of everything that is going on at the port. If any other board members have items they wish to see in this update, please provide them to Rosanna so that she can get a full list to Butch. I would like to have this update at our June or July meeting. Y'all have already talked about that, so that's, yeah, all right,
That's your statement, right?
that's Patrick.
Oh,
Yeah,
so does the board agree with that?
well, we don't have to agree to it. That Patrick is asking for that information. He's just asking for it for the board. And I think y'all talked about it already.
Yeah, we had on a call about it a month ago.
Yeah. So he's just giving us kind of a timeline for when he needs that, when he wants that information. Yeah. All right. Any other questions or concerns about anything for Patrick?
I'm kind of at a loss because we can't really ask Patrick any questions about what is already included in that. That's the first time I've heard about the report, the requested report. Does anybody else talk
Well,
about
I think it was pretty clear it's what he's asking for, and like we've said, Butch, he and Butch have already talked about it. I think David's talked to Butch about it.
I thought it was a good annual review of.
Yeah.
Everything that's transpired over the year, that's considered, and it's something that we'd like to do on an annual basis.
Just give us a good
Update
understanding
of
of,
what worked, what didn't work, what the
right,
tonnage was, what the maintenance was on the facility, what issues that they could find. I think that we want to just a good.
Yeah.
Probably kind of annual update.
So is it gonna include financials, like overall, like ROI?
I don't think so.
Okay. I would like to understand enough about the sale transaction to understand the basics of, the viability of the port. We requested that information high level back, when you all first came in. I know there were discussions between Patrick and your council. But I don't believe there was ever any presentation to the board, just high level about the ROI, about the investment that was made, for us to understand, just at a high level, what the basics of the transaction were. It was very general, very broad brush. There were no financials. So, I mean, whatever you think you can disclose, I would like to see some financial information.
We are a private build entity, so that makes it a little more challenging.
And as part of the transaction, you stepped into over $30 million worth of public bond financing.
That's correct, yeah.
And we have an interest in the issuer of those bonds to understand enough to know whether or not we want to consent. And we asked for that information, we never got it. Do you guys agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with it.
I know we voted on it back before, Commissioner Nelson and Commissioner Taylor joined the board.
But I don't know the legal aspects of it. I think Butch is concerned about some of that, and I agree with what he says, but that's something that attorneys will have to look at. Okay? All right, let's move on to Port Accountant report. Pierre?
So in your packet, you have the second over treasurer's report. The treasurer's report is in your packet and on the screen. Obviously the fees coming in quarterly, so no fee this month. We'll receive our ARPA reimbursement. I submitted those are coming in pretty quickly. It takes about 30 to 40 days to get those back, so everything's running very smoothly with the ARPA reimbursements we're submitting. You see the port revenue, the admin and buffering fees are coming in. We are looking at splitting those out into separate admin and buffering. So just kind of getting the system set up. So the way we receive the information to the operator, so we can present that on here. So we're working on that. Other than that, no, everything else is kind of the usual. Obviously, we paid the second half of the audit fee was completed. You saw the audited financial statements, so no other comments on any of that, unless anybody has a question. Next page is the Customs House. Receive reimbursements from the operator for that, so no issues as far as I understand them. And on the next page,
Hold up, I have one question, under Customs House cleaning service. There's been nothing spent for that.
None, because the operator pays directly.
Okay, so
we're gonna have to look at doing something different next year with the budget for the Customs House. Obviously, we're not receiving any rent anymore. So how we'll present it, the financials, since most of the expenses are paid by the operator anyway. So obviously it's no longer relevant to put it on a separate page like this. So, but we'll decide what we're going to do with it when it comes to budget and how we're going to present it for next year. As I said, most of the expenses, I think all the expenses are covered by the operator now, so, yeah, you know, it's really just, an in and out for the Port Authority.
Okay,
And then obviously the balances as of, April, 30th, we just received, as I said, we just received 73,000 from, the ARPA funds. So that's reflected in that April 28th balance. And that, you know, part of that will be used to cover salaries and things like that for the next 3 months, so.
and as of right now, we got 90,000 in the maintenance account.
Correct. That's the $5,000 per month
Right.
contribution the operator makes. Yeah,
So the negative 85,000 year to date. That's with the ARPA budget included, so that's exceeding what we forecast for the year.
correct. And that's because of legal. Essentially. Everything else is running, you know, obviously the master plan, obviously the ARPA reimbursement are running according to budget and plan. There may be some timing issues as far as when expenses versus income, but everything else is running according to plan. It's the legal piece is probably the biggest ongoing issue.
So it's $110,000 over budget.
I don't think we budgeted for the legal fees, did we?
We budgeted 110,000
Well,
for
you know.
unpaid legal.
Right.
It says budget 2022-23 in the third column on the right, unpaid legal fees, 110,000. So that was at the start of the budgetary fiscal year. We already had at that point $110,000 for unpaid legal fees.
I see what you're talking.
And now we have 250.
That 250.
So we are $140,000 over budget.
And I'll just say the ARPA reimbursement also, the income from the ARPA funds included us being able to build security to ARPA in this budget. And we decided we were not able to build security for the ARPA funds, which will just sped up the ability to receive ARPA funds, right? So we've been able to submit security to pay off some of these bills, you know, build up a reserve. So, so the ARPA funds will not come in at their full budget of 481 this year because, as I said, because we're not able to submit the security as a reimbursement.
So we're falling short due to that by how much? I don't see, I'm looking for security.
Security is about 140,000.
So 280,000. Delta.
We have we won't be able to pay off those legal fees this year. They'll stretch into next year.
Right.
So we need to start making some decisions then. And I did ask for that, for our financial situation to be put on the agenda so that we could talk about that, because I saw some of the emails coming through, and that's why I asked for that to be added to the agenda.
So, yeah, we advise the attorney that, you know, there's a chance that we're approaching the point where we won't be able to reverse. We won't have the funds available to pay off this legal fee. We're going to reach a point where that's just not possible based on the current cash flow. On the current,
We've got to get out of these court cases.
so we're not there yet, but if the attorney's been advised of that. There's a time when that will come, but there's just not enough funds that we see coming in as it comes to be able to pay off the legal fee for it. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we need to take a hard look at this. This is crazy, to say the least. Especially these two lawsuits that we're battling right now are at no fault of this board. We were drawn into it. But to allow ourselves to get into this position, in my opinion, straight up, is unacceptable. We have to eliminate this immediately, if not sooner. Whatever that takes. And if that takes putting pressure on the parties to settle and get us out of this never-ending carousel. This doesn't look like it's going to stop unless we as a board stops it. I have a very uneasy feeling when I look at numbers like this. If we tried to run our household budgets like this, we'd be all homeless.
Well, I can tell you that two of the reasons is the case with the city and the case with property appraiser. Property appraiser's case is at a standstill right now. There are no other legal fees being spent on property appraiser's case because we're waiting on the Supreme Court to make a judgment on another case that will affect our case. And as soon as that comes in, we'll know where to go from there. But that's something we have to fight. Because if we lose that one, we're done. We can't pay those fees.
But isn't that one a fallout from the ballot page?
No. No, not really. Some may say it is, but it's not.
I mean, if I'm looking from the outside in, I see where it's a direct.
I don't think we should talk about pending
No,
litigation.
no, we shouldn't.
But to that end, do we have a shade meeting schedule?
We don't have one yet. We haven't set it up, but probably we're gonna,
Our last meeting, we said we were gonna have a shade meeting.
yes,
schedule. And then we canceled the next meeting, and this is that next meeting that we were supposed to have a shade meeting before.
we're
So
gonna
we need
have
a shade
one,
meeting.
we'll have one in June. I will tell you that. There will be one in June. I just gotta get with Patrick on the day.
It could be
And
sooner than that, for my schedule. I can be available sooner.
I know.
And I think to Mr. Hill's point and to Mr. Nelson's point, I mean, there's a sense of urgency on there, so I think the sooner we can get go. But, because there are a lot of, we, even the new commissioners, we haven't really discussed a lot. I mean, we've had discussions with Patrick, but I think there's a lot that we need to talk about, and I agree if there's a way to settle these things, we gotta settle them, but
Yeah,
but in the, I know it for sure, the case of the property appraiser's case, that one's gonna, might be a little bit longer, so.
Because when you wait on Supreme Court to make a decision, it takes a couple of months. It's already been about a month. I can check with Patrick. Look at your calendar. We could do it on the 24th. At their regular meeting. A special meeting.
Works for me.
All right. Ray? I'm good. David?
Yeah.
Here? I don't know if you did good in that anyway. I'm not even sure.
David's not.
Usually I might be included. Okay. All right, let's plan for the, well, I'll let you know what time and where.
You were in the last shade meeting, were you?
No. Okay, let's plan on the 24th, and I'll check with Patrick first thing in the morning.
Same
And,
time.
well, I don't know yet. We may do it earlier.
But we're pretty sure the chambers are available, right? Is that-
Or if not, we'll go somewhere else. Okay? All right, 24. Very good. Here?
So you also have in your packet the second quarter financial statements, the complete financial statements for the authority. So for the year ended, for the second quarter ended March 31st, and the one quarter ended March 31st. So on the first page, the first section is the balance sheet. Again, same balances as we've seen. Obviously, these are March. We just saw the April balances in the account, so slight difference there. You'll see in line 2051, the work in process, the The cranes, project is still ongoing as far as costs and additional assets, so that's the only change in the fixed assets to date. On the next page is liabilities, again, no significant changes to anything there. So move to the next page.
The over $300,000 drawdown in the maintenance fund, 4519,
Mhm.
that was a, what
That
was
was
that
the-
related to?
So that should have been the tugboat, yeah.
300.
Oh, no, so obviously the grants are coming through there, right? So even the port operators putting funds through there, so the payments from, to the North Carolina cranes, right? The funds come into our maintenance account, we pay ZPMC. Obviously, then ZPMC puts the money back into, or sorry, FDOT reimburses us and we send that back to the operator. So that maintenance fund is used for those funds to go back and forth, so.
So the maintenance fund is not the fund that would get to $1 million and then the.
Yes, it is.
would change.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so, but this is different. These are grants. So in theory, we could move this into a separate account completely, because this is just money in and out, right? So the operator is providing us the funds to pay bills without any request for us to use any of the maintenance funds. So like the ZPMC cranes, the operator is providing us the funds to pay for the ZPMC work on North Carolina crane. And then they submit, well, we submit and they jointly to FDOT for reimbursement of that. That money comes back into that maintenance account and then goes back to the operator as a refund of their contribution that they made, without changing the balance of the maintenance account. Any use of the maintenance funds would have to come to you to approve, right? So again, this is just an in and out for payments for grants.
Yeah, that just surprises me because I think the way the agreement is written, if that balance gets to $1 million, it triggers a change in the dynamic of payments between the operator and the board.
It does.
So if we were to receive a disbursement of grant funds that exceeded that threshold, I think there could be an inadvertent impact. Maybe that's never contemplated, but
Well, I think that's I think the language in the agreement, Commissioner, that we have to maintain that $1 million, so.
for how long?
I mean, in this case, it's almost instantaneous, so if the money goes in, we can reimburse it back out, so.
Okay.
I don't
And-
think.
If it became an issue, if we were getting those kind of funds and it became an issue, we just move it to a separate account.
Okay.
Because actually, we're required to keep the grant funds separate. So we just move it to a separate account. It's
I
just,
know we don't want accounts that would be zero balance.
right, that would just stay, only you, literally the funds stay in there for 2 days. Because they go immediately out to ZPMC, and as soon as the FDOT funds come in, when we're talking about 200, 300,000, obviously, we don't want that money sitting around. And so it moves immediately to where it belongs, so we don't leave it sitting in that account.
Right.
And the only reason you're seeing it is because it just happened over the end of the month, right? We didn't get it out that last day of the month, or else the balance would have been much lower.
So what should that number, like when an average person looks at the change, they're gonna say, wow, there's a big change between 391 and 80,000. But what is our target for that maintenance fund?
So it's on you see the balance of 90,000 on the treasurer's report, right? So it's we're receiving 5,000 a month from the operator on, every month we receive $5,000. That goes into the maintenance account until the operator requests us to, remember, so the contract says the operator is responsible for the first $15,000 for any repair and for OHPA equipment, and then the OHPA is responsible for anything above that. That money is what the maintenance fund is for.
Okay,
So the operator would have to, the operator has to request those maintenance funds to cover, which is what, if you remember back, the tugboat, when we did the first tugboat, the 200,000 or whatever it was, which came from maintenance funds, that was requested from the operator, they paid the 15,000, and the rest came from the maintenance account.
Our goal for maintenance account is $1 million.
What will happen, Commissioner Hill, is in about 2 more years, we'll start collecting a throughput fee in addition to our fixed fee. And 90, according to the agreement, 97% of that amount goes into the maintenance account, in addition to the 60,000 that the operator puts in the revenue. to build us toward that $1 million.
But the purpose of that is to maintain the infrastructure of the port, right?
Yeah, so it's a capital reserve account.
So it's not for OPA operations.
No.
It's to maintain the asset.
Right. Okay,
Okay,
thank you for humoring my questions.
hopefully no problem.
So next page is the income statement, so you have the comparison of October to March. So the 6-month period of 2022-23 versus 21-22. Again, most of the differences are because of the grants and the funding. Things like, if you look at the 6900, those are contributions coming in, again, for maintenance. With the crane project, obviously, again, there was $5 million total spending, of which $2.5 million was from the port operator. So. Any other lines, if you look at line 6028, the annual fee, the operator is now paying us quarterly. So the previous operator was paying us monthly, fell behind a little bit, and so the current operator now is paying us the fee as the contract requires on a quarterly basis. So that's all the comments I have, unless anybody have any specific questions.
You want to have any questions? Your financial stuff, you understand it? Some of it I do, some of it. I'm glad we have an account. All right, anything else? Here?
That's all I have.
Let's go.
We already talked about the ARPA. As I said, everything is running smoothly. We're submitting reimbursements for payroll on a quarterly basis, and that's going smoothly, so no issues.
Okay, David, you're up.
You have my written report, so I'll try to summarize some of these things quickly for you. There is a Florida Ports Council fly-in to DC next week to meet with a number of legislators. I think there's about 8 or so ports that are going to be represented there. So if there's anything that gets reported back out of that, I'll share that with you guys. Regarding FSTED, I reported previously that we were in the process of putting together our grant applications for the coming year. In consultation with Butch and his team, the decision was made not to submit this year, but rather continue to focus on spending down the balances that we already have in grant funds. There's about $2 million outstanding still in capital dollars for projects. So the operators decided that they'd rather focus on that rather than commit new monies. So the plan at this point is to skip this cycle.
Which is a full year.
Yeah, so the way the process works is the grants are submitted in May. Various agencies review those applications, and the FSTED Council approves them at their August meeting for funding that would become available next July. So that would happen again. So the next time we would see additional funds for these projects, unless there's a reallocation. Now, we already have existing grants that we can supplement with. So if the funds do become available, we can still get an allocation if we so choose. It still requires a match that we've been getting from the operator. But otherwise, we would not have new applications submitted for funding available until 2025.
And about how much grant funding do we have already, like out there?
It's about $2 million.
And they're mostly capital projects that would be like 75-25,
50-50.
50-50.
And the bulk of them are on things like the covered storage facility. Probably about half of it is on that project and close to it. Then there are other funds out there for earth rehabilitation and paving and things like that as well.
So I'm just not clear, like, what's the rationale for not applying for grants? I mean, FSTED is how federal and state money, like a lot of the federal money comes through the state.
Well,
Why wouldn't we apply for those grants?
the federal money is separate from that, but this is strictly for FSTED grants that come from state.
That's state money,
It's purely state money
because like the ARPA money came through the state, like it was divvied up.
through DOT, but not through the FSTED.
Okay,
So yeah, the state is the administrator of the federal dollars. They serve as the administrator, but the ESDA council only approves dollars that go to them, which is all state money.
And every grant is, there's a time limit on every grant.
Right, there's generally a
If they don't spend that
5-year.
money, They start putting it back, and if they get it back, then we don't get as much next year. That's a complicated formula.
are we applying for federal grants?
We will be, yeah. And, but again, they're gonna come, most even federal grants come with a match requirement. And, you know, so we're having to do that in consultation with Butch. The next time I was gonna talk about is one of those such projects, so. As I briefed y'all before, we did get a state grant, 100% funding for a resiliency plan. That consultant, HMTB, has begun the data gathering phase of that effort. The completion of that plan, as long as it is consistent with the city's plan, and the city is getting ready to award the contract to their planning consultant to do their plan. As long as our plans are consistent with each other and consistent with the state plan, then there are federal dollars that would pay up to 93% of the project, requiring only a 7% state and local match. So in those cases, I think, you know, again, it'd be a conversation with us, the operator, the city, the railroad, whoever may be benefiting from that plan, to be able to go through. So that's certainly what we're focusing on. As it relates to that resiliency plan, we're looking probably sometime in June. I was thinking at the June 14th meeting to have the consultant team here to do a presentation updating not only us, but also the city, the county, all of our stakeholders on where we are with that planning effort. And they would be here for the bulk of the day, maybe into the next day, to continue to do some site visits, meet with stakeholders, and move that project along. So
Is there a public workshop?
that would be what I would anticipate being at our commission meeting that evening.
I think it would have to be, I don't know, I'm not speaking for the whole board, but I think it would be worthwhile to have a separate workshop, because the resiliency topic is very like front of mind to the local community. I think you get a good turnout.
Yeah, and again, you know, I'm not sure how far down the road they're gonna be in this phase by then. So it'll be more of an update in terms of what their scope of service is, what the base case scenario is, you know, from the data that they have today. And then there'll be opportunities for subsequent presentation once we start developing what the strategies and outcomes of that are. So I don't see this as a one and done. I think there'll probably be opportunities for multiple conversations about
What was the funding for that?
state fund. Well, actually, I think it was federal dollars that went to the state. And state,
How
I
much was it?
think their contract was, don't quote me, but I think it was like 130,000. What was it?
157 right
Maybe somewhere in that range. And the consultant, you know, is working for DOT, so the dollars don't flow to us at all. So it's a DOT contract being managed by DOT, but for our purposes.
So, the public workshops being coordinated with the city, right?
Yes,
Okay. It'll be advertised.
absolutely. Consistent with the recommendations of the Port Master Plan, had conversations with the city regarding designation of the Port District roads and needing a resolution from the city to designate those roads. So I think that's being teed up now for one of the June meetings with the city for them to consider that resolution. If the city agrees and they approve the resolution, then we would send that to DOT. They would produce the signs on our behalf, and then working with which we get them installed.
You want to tell everybody why that's important?
Well, it does a couple of things. One is, it makes the use of those public roads by port equipment that otherwise might not carry licenses, for example, forklifts and bomb carts, makes it legal for them to operate on those roads without needing any type of registration or licensing. But just as importantly, I think, is it, because we're now be putting up signs that say Port District Road, we'll cite the Florida statute on it. That's just another reminder to the traveling public that you're within an operating port area, and, you know, be a little bit careful. A lot of heavy equipment moving on public streets, and so it's,
And
maybe
what,
we can do the improved safety.
and what streets will that be?
It will be, Gage Street from Front to Second. Or I'm sorry, Third. Second Street from Dade to Broome. And then Calhoun from the railroad track to Central.
Yeah.
It's essentially the routes that our equipment travels on a daily basis.
Trucks and forklifts and
Right.
loaders.
Continue to have conversation with Marad regarding the tugboat and the grant. Not sure exactly what the resolution will be at this point, but we are continuing on almost a weekly basis now, having some communication with them. We'll probably have another call, either if not this week, probably next week.
All right.
The other thing I did want to, we did have a meeting yesterday with DOT, actually it was with the Office of Inspector General. The audit that they're performing, they're gonna be looking at the grant that we used to fund the crane. It was just a sort of an introductory meeting. Pierre was there, the chairman, myself. The Bush.
Crane and the North Carolina cranes and the fabric.
Yeah.
I did check that today.
So that'll be going over. They said it could take anywhere from 6 months to a year to get it wrapped up, but we'll be working that, and Pierre will be our primary point of contact with them on that. Also do want to mention, Mr. Hill, to maybe help answer some of your questions. The operator did file their annual report with them. So there's some new documentation on the other website for their annual report for 2022. If that's all that I have, I think they have any questions.
Thank you.
Any questions for? Is that all you got on? Yeah. The FEMA handbook, you didn't mention that.
They're still in progress. Okay, nothing we already talked about.
So we just discussed all of our financial concerns. I don't see anything in the director's report about that. Is there any focus on that at all?
I'm not sure.
Well, so we're talking about OPA's financial situation, and I know we have an item on the agenda, but I just wasn't sure. You didn't mention economic development or anything, any other opportunities for revenue.
Well, we're certainly, there is an item coming up in new business related to the residential properties, non-industrial properties that we talked about as part of the master plan. Disposing those, I've also been having pretty active conversations with some of the other waterfront property owners who are in future development along the waterfront, given that we own that one parcel on the waterfront that's pretty underutilized. Also been meeting with some potential customers and users separately and with the operator to try to develop some new opportunities. So nothing that I can report on publicly in terms of where we are, but those conversations are ongoing and active.
You have comments? Or? Good. Okay, Butch, you're up.
I thought we were going to discuss the other items attached to his report.
Like what?
Well, you just said there's new business, or are we waiting for that until new business?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wasn't sure because of the order.
Yeah.
Okay. In the packet, it didn't line up. There.
Good to go.
Yeah.
All right. The fun begins.
Wow.
Good evening, commissioners. I'd like to report a couple items for April. Container tons was steady with Summers Isle. Myself and a couple members of our team was able to attend the Summers Isle board meeting that they held here on the island last month. Matt McPhail, our new commercial developer, and Kyle Clark was in attendance. We heard great things. There was 11 to 13 members in there in that meeting. And they're very happy with the service that they're receiving today. And we also learned that they've extended their charter on their vessel for 5 more years. So it looks as long as we keep doing our job, they'll keep sending the vessel here. So we was excited to hear that too. As far as break bulk cargo, ships did what ships do, and sometimes they slide. And so a ship that we was kind of expected in to hit the end of April, it would have boosted those numbers up, landed in the 1st of May. So it made our numbers for April tonnage look down from where we actually expected and budgeted. We had less dockage days due to that. Trucks remained a little bit steady. And part of that was the cement, which is almost off the terminal now. There's just a handful of bags left there. So this month so far, we've unloaded 1 bulk vessel, and we've got a Utex vessel at berth right now that we're unloading. Whether all goes well, we should complete that cargo potentially tomorrow evening.
Okay, Butch, I noticed on your report, you don't have the number of ships and rail cars.
Yeah, there was 10 dockage days,
Okay. Then what it used to be.
4
I'm not-
ports of call.
I'm not used to it.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, the rail cars were down a little bit. There's inventory in the warehouses right now that more than likely drove that. And then we was 27 truckloads average per day versus 33 the month previous.
Yeah. I see it. Any questions about the tonnage report?
Did you comment on the KLB and I missed it? On that, why that was off?
SCA's got a vessel coming in. So that one,
You did mention that.
yeah, it's gonna hit.
That's the one you said slipped.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we,
A ship that left last night.
Mhm.
Which ship is that?
that was a, bulk
It was
vessel.
full? Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, and the nice thing with Yucatex, they were a customer that only drayed from Jacksonville in the past, and then during the pandemic, they switched because of container challenges during that time. We've been working with them, and they brought in a vessel just 3 weeks ago that we unloaded that had a pretty hefty payload on it. And they've already sent another one in. So what we've heard from that customer is they're going to be cycling through about every 40 to 45 days, which is much more than what we've seen in the past. So that's really good news. And Matt's doing a good job. A lot of these customers that we deal with on a daily basis, he was calling on them in his previous life where he was for 17 years before. He already has connections and he's very familiar with them. Some of the customers that have agreements expired or agreements coming up, he's worked through agreements with them before in his previous role. And so he's just hit the ground running and picking up all those balls and getting us high tide. So we're excited to have him on board.
It's a small community.
Yeah.
It's who you know too.
Yeah, the entire industry is much smaller than what it actually feels like.
So there were some issues with the warehouses, with the leaking. I don't know, I don't need to, that's coming later, but
And if you'd like to carry through, I'm happy to.
Go ahead.
Yes, and they still exist. We retained a bid to have that roof on warehouse 3. They'd come in and pressure wash, clean, and then apply a coating on that. And, it came in right at a little over $100,000. And then also along with that, they also said that they could repair the canopy over that was damaged in the storm for 25 or 30 more. I don't remember the actual numbers, which was significantly lower than the bid that we received before.
Good price.
So, this is something that we probably need to discuss at some time on how we want to go at this, because there are some maintenance reserve funds that are available in the bank, and this may be a good place to spend those funds.
So we don't have legal counsel tonight, but if the project exceeds a certain monetary threshold, then triggers the need to do a procurement process. If it's public structures. And Patrick would have to tell you when that threshold is met and what the requirements are. If it's an emergency, there are exceptions, but it's like you can't create the emergency. If it's like long-term emergency, they probably not qualify. But you'll have to talk to me about that, especially since it's OPA structures. There's a lead time, as you know, for public bids.
Absolutely.
So if you need our consensus to talk with Patrick about that process, I mean, I think we have consensus that we can still engage on it.
I think me and Patrick talk all the time.
All right.
We get a fair amount of phone time in these
Yeah.
days. Yes.
Okay, anything else for Butch?
Did you want to roll into the tug? That was floating around here earlier.
That's coming under new business, isn't it? Let me see, let me go to new business. No, it isn't. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Well, it was just added last moment.
That's right.
So there was a report that was circulated. Many of you may have in front of you that it's a report that we requested a third party to come in anticipation of the dry dock event, to come in and do a in-depth analysis of the tug itself and provide us feedback. And if any have reviewed that, they've done a very thorough job, which is
Very thorough.
exactly what we was looking for. Because it's no different than if I'm gonna get audited by the RRS, I would want our good friend sitting over here that is just very good at that stuff to be plowing through and make sure we're ready for that. And that's what this is for. So our team, this report came in last night. There were guys on the tug today already starting to knock some of these action items off. There's some in there that catches a person's eye because of the way it's written. Let's see, find major nonconformity, sounds like a board action item. When in turn, it's pretty quick cleanup. Many of these things is just housekeeping items, down to as little as light bulb replacement. The one thing I will say, we just recently went through a thorough Coast Guard inspection with no violations, and they actually commented on how clean the galley and the engine room was. So the tug's in good shape. There are some items here, but we would rather get what's on this report knocked out on our dollars instead of what dry dock dollars are that are much more extensive than what it would be if we'd done it ourselves.
Put the spray paint cans in a lot, so.
There you go.
You got 7 non-conformities. Are any of those showstoppers that you know of? I mean.
Most of these,
Just from operating.
yeah, no, absolutely not. And the ones that I've seen on here on nonconformities aren't something that's gonna be looked at during the dry dock event.
Yeah.
It, like I say, this was just a third party that was retained to come in and say, "Get clean house on us here and let's see what we can get fixed."
Okay, any questions for Butch?
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Butch. All right, we'll go to new business. Old business. For Bernadine thing here. All right, new business. Board of County Commission bailiff compensation conflict. All right. I've been working for the last month, to figure out why we're paying a bailiff, regular salary overtime instead of, bringing one in here for, out of regular pay. Like, I think they charge $40 a day if we had a bailiff, but the problem is because they shut this building down at 5 o'clock, they have to have a bailiff here at 5 o'clock to open this room. Down, it's locked. So if Rosanna comes in here at 5 o'clock, they have to have somebody here to open. Why they won't let us have a key or whatever, I don't know. So that's why I was told that we had to have somebody that works here during the day. And then we pay him overtime. Starting at 5 o'clock, we pay him overtime for our meetings. So if we're here for 2 hours, it's from 5 to 8. So that's 3 hours we have to pay him, and we're only here 2. Right now, that's just the way it's set up. So what I would like to do is have your consensus to move the time of our meeting. And what that would do, we wouldn't have to hire someone to come in here. The bailiff would already be here working on county time. He could open this room for us. We wouldn't have to pay the overtime. And I don't think we'd have to pay the $40 a day. I mean, an hour to bring somebody in here for our meeting. So I'd like your consensus to move the time of our meetings, and I will check before we do that to make sure that that's the case. And if that's, I think the last, how much was the last payment we made to the bailiff? Rosanna? For 2 hours, for our
100
2-hour meeting, of course, which was 3 hours.
About $175. The previous one, the month previous to that, is about a little over 300.
$300.
Mhm.
So that would save us some money. I'm thinking 1 o'clock would be a good time. We don't have any meetings in here at that time. There are some of us here that are retired and don't work, so, but there are 2 of you here that have jobs. So you would have to make arrangements to come in at 1 o'clock.
It's not one of the two, that wouldn't be an issue.
Okay,
So the rationale for the timing of the meetings is not for the convenience of the board, it's for the public to be able to attend. And so, I mean, I've taken time off to attend meetings, and I will drive over the county if you want to do the roving meetings. Because I know we talked about doing that, doing some on the west side and doing some at the city. But you could skip 2 meetings here a year and recoup the amount of money that you're talking about. If you did do the rotating meetings, we've always talked about it, we are pretty good about following through on it. And I'd be happy to drive to the west side to do it. I just think that it's inconsistent with the way all the other public board meetings are conducted.
county commission meets in the morning sometimes.
Well, they also have their Monday night meetings, so they
Always have
nights
their Monday
on,
night
and,
meetings.
you know, we're just doing just this one,
But look around. This is a night meeting. How many people from the public do we have?
When we had our meetings in the city, we had a lot of people there.
Well, that was in the city. And that was during the time we were discussing our master plan. But that's done and over with.
but because they're not here now, doesn't mean that next month we're not gonna have an issue where.
Well, they can come to the meeting if they need to come. I mean, most of those people that came probably didn't work anyway. I just. And that's not the only reason. I've talked to Patrick. Patrick would like to do it at 9 o'clock in the morning. I said, I don't think that's possible. I just think we need to move our meeting times to 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to do that for the reasons I just stated, so we want to vote on
So
it.
then what happens if we do have another big issue and we're getting hit with emails and we know that there's gonna be 100 people here?
We can change
Then we can
anything we
change-
want to at any time.
Correct, but then we lack that consistency. I mean, it could be every other month that we have something people showing up. And since I've been here, we've at least had a few people showing up and
The last year and a half, we've had 2 meetings a month. We're not doing that now. That's not consistent.
I know,
So
and
you're
I
like,
agree.
there's an option of less consistency or?
We need more consistency here.
I don't know what your problem with it is.
Involving the public, but
right.
you mentioned the west side. Well, we've never had any draw from anybody from the west side.
We have meetings over there at
I
night.
mean, I know everybody,
Nobody comes.
there's never been anybody coming to our meetings from the west side. you know.
Yeah, in the time I've been on the board, I know we talked about doing the meetings over there, but I think FSCJ is the most west we've gone, and those meetings were actually pretty well attended.
We went to Hilliard one time. Mhm.
My remark probably won't be accepted too well, but if we're looking at ways to save money, I think there's other items that we could go and put our finger on and make a whole lot more headway in saving money than trying to worry about whether we're gonna pay 2 hours of a bailiff's overtime or 3 hours. I think we're losing ourselves there. And,
And I don't, honestly, I don't disagree with you at all. I think we're down to, this.
let's don't be a penny wise and a
I
pound
don't
foolish.
think it's, the reason is financial. That's not the whole reason. I mean, for $175, the way our budget is, that could be a lot of money at some point, but it's not the financial part. It's
What about moving our meeting to 5 o'clock?
I'm gonna speak for the guys that are working shift this afternoon, can't be here. I mean, I talked to them, they enjoyed coming, they enjoyed the, information that they get. The reason that they're not here is that shift is working. So let's try to consider them as well. I mean, I got information today, hey, can't make it, but, hopefully we can see it on, YouTube later on or whatever, we'll catch up with it. Let's don't forget those guys. I mean, they're the ones that are out there twirling the cargo and making it happen. So, I mean, we can discuss this from now to doomsday, but I think we're losing the main point here. If it's a money issue, which it is, because that's what's come out about the cost. I'm a little shocked by the cost because I thought it was going to be a little bit less than that based on the information that I heard. But anytime you have people that can dabble in it and figure out how to get the straight on it, whether they're paying the guy a 3-hour call out or a 2-hour call out, he's already here. Why can't we just say, hey, it's twice a month? Let's just don't lose ourselves in that when we still have constituents, people at the port that work there. We need to consider them as well. There's no way they can come at 1 o'clock.
all right. We'll move on.
So I'm okay with moving on from the meeting. Actually, can I ask a question about meeting space?
Yeah.
Related. So about a year and 2 months ago, we gave a list to David of items of focus, and one of them was meeting space for this board. And the customs house is a continuing issue. I think we need to prioritize that. We need to have a plan for a permanent meeting space for our board. You know, we've kind of struggled with it it's been 2 years where we've been homeless.
Well, as long as we're willing to pay the fee, this is a permanent meeting space. What do we need to try to find someplace else?
Yeah, one of the ideas that we discussed was building the facility that the customs and border patrol have requested, like figuring out how to fund that. Move the customs house across the street, like looking at that, you know, that's in our master plan.
That one, cruise ships,
But that's not the only form of funding.
what's the other form?
That's what we've tasked David to do.
But there's-
He's had a year to work on that.
I should, with all due respect, I haven't been here quite a year yet. So, say, a year and 2 months, I haven't been here that long. We have been working with, I've been working with the city for months. On space at the tech center, it's up for every month. They're still renovating the space there. Once they're comfortable providing us with a lease document, I'll submit it to you. My understanding is that will include access to the auditorium if you want to use that for a meeting space. For a commission meeting. But until I have something from the city, I have nothing to present you with, other than updates. When we took the cruise out of the master plan, we took out the multi-purpose building and the front and the project with customs at the same time. We struck all that language at the same time we struck cruise because that was the revenue stream for that. In talking with customs just recently, you know, the subject didn't even come up about them relocating. They still have not implemented the IT and communications program that we funded last September, October. So there's not a sense of urgency for customers to do anything. And to build office space for myself and Rosanna just doesn't seem prudent on those real estate portion. When we have these other options available to us. So we're still working those out. I think Tech Center, frankly, would be a great opportunity for us.
Any idea of what they're gonna charge?
You know, again, when we first met with them, they were talking $250, $300 a month or something like that. But that would, as I said, that would provide us with our office space as well as access to the auditorium for meetings and things like that. So
How many square feet is the store, like the area that would be?
it's a two-room suite.
Okay.
So we provide space for Rosanna, space for myself, file cabinets and so on.
That's a good space.
Yeah, Chairman walked it with me several months ago. So that's all being worked, but again, they're having to renovate several aspects of that building in order to make that space available for us. So as they make progress, I'll update you.
So, if I had my way, we would all meet in Bush's conference room with that. But I know it's not big enough, and you probably get tired of us. And we talked to the city about maybe their chambers, what they would charge, because, I mean, if it's lower, if it's less than this, if it were, then there's what there, the law, so right there. In the city where majority of the folks are gonna come, and then even the Savage employees, you know, that were right there. Have we had that discussion with them about availability and?
Yes and no, not formally. But I think they have something on our meeting night, so we wouldn't be able to do that.
But if we're looking at moving it time, if we day, I mean, if they have something that I'm just trying to think outside the box here. I know this is.
Yeah.
You know, when I had conversations with the previous city manager, he was really focused on Tech Center as our best option because there was the least conflict. I know the PND needs the same kind of,
Yeah.
So we changing meeting dates, which, you know, we can probably do. But I think they're going to get pretty heavily.
They did offer it to us, is the short answer. They did offer it to us. And it was at a nominal, if any fee.
But I was assuming they were bad, or we were,
There is a direct conflict at our current meeting time for the PAB.
What time's PAB?
I think it's at 5.
We met at 1 o'clock. We'd be out of there by the time PAB got.
Yeah, I like the idea of being close to the port because for all the reasons you just talked about, it makes sense. If we're primarily discussing port business. and we can do port.
What if, going back to here in our time, what about if we met here at 5 o'clock? That's in the evening, give everybody a chance to get here by the time we had anything to discuss. It may keep us from having to pay as much overtime because you'd only be here 2 hours for our meeting instead of 3 hours, that extra hour. That's a thought.
If we did go over, we go over. We don't need to be suppressing any of our business. Oh, we gotta hurry up and get out of here because this guy's gonna wanna go at
Yeah,
7
we're talking
o'clock.
about for the city,
Not-
yeah.
But I wanna, before we get out of this one. Dave said something about customs. Correct me if I'm wrong, but next year is their negotiation for the building. I will say this. If we don't have a plan for what we're going to do with them, we're not gonna have to worry about it. And I'm gonna leave it at that at this point. I can tell you that for a fact. Now, this was all supposed to be covered in my committee report. But I will say that because of the comment that was made, we need to look at that. If we have a plan, fine. If we're not going to have a plan, I would highly suggest that we notify CBP and let them know that. Because it's always better to be up front than them having to find out about it on the backside.
Customs and Border is a convenience for the port operator. Is that correct?
As far as I'm concerned, yes.
Butch, I'm gonna put you on the spot. How do you feel about having CBP here instead of in Jacksonville?
I don't know that I'm completely prepared to answer that statement at this moment on the spot. But I can say that we function very well in Wilmington with them not being on our location.
Could you function well here without them being here?
Haven't, never tried or experienced that. It's tough to say. But the vessel schedule's out there weeks in advance and it could be planned accordingly. Right now, Customs and Border Patrol is an expense to the operator wholly. And any additional fees, I'm sure would fall to the operator as well. So I'm happy to investigate that and see what that looks like.
All right, let's do that.
Ray, do you have any idea what it might cost additionally from there for them to come from Jacksonville here?
Well, I can tell you from being in Jacksonville at the port of Blount Island for 32 years, there were a lot of years that customs came from Talleyrand to Blount Island to clear the vessel. And for the stevedores, it wasn't an inconvenience for us because as Butch relayed, the schedules are out there. So they schedule their times around the ship's docking and sailings. So it worked in Jacksonville.
Butch, investigate that and let us know. It's nothing that we need to rush on. But something kind of take a look at and let's see where we stand with that.
Absolutely.
Now, all right, you saying that, making that statement, Ray, does that mean maybe we could possibly end the customs out?
No.
I don't know where we'd sit.
Okay.
Because I've had meetings in there and, you know, we got people sitting on desk.
Yeah, okay.
No,
Might work for an office.
it, it may help him out with, you know, supervisors or something using that facility. But I'll cover the other portion of that when we get to the committee notes.
So the customs, set up in Jacksonville, it's a shared facility, right?
I do not know.
Share with Coast Guard.
So the Coast Guard
Yeah.
Customs, so Coast Guard helps to pay for it, but the Customs doesn't.
I'm not sure what they're funding,
Yeah.
how they fund that. I
I'm
mean,
pretty sure that's.
it was paid for out of federal dollars, so I'm not sure operational, how they pay for
Mhm.
costs.
And that
Yeah.
like co-working or whatever, or sharing the space has been discussed time, you know, in the past. Because there would be multiple pots of money, multiple funding opportunities, instead of, you know, going in that direction of getting rid of the customs to add another tenant that would be able to pay, perhaps a federal agency. That's.
Or use it as an office space for a exam, even. That's something we don't even need to get into right now, if we've got plenty of time to think about that and investigate. So let's put that in the cup right now and move on. Because we're getting close to a 2-hour thing here. Yeah. Port security contract.
That actually, should not have been on the.
Yeah, we
agenda.
should have pulled that off because we've got that under control.
Long and short of it is, we'll have an item on next month's agenda to amend the
Right.
current contract, but basically what the rates last.
What? All right, non-industrial open property, David?
Yeah, so you have the board submission on that. Essentially, as you know, part of the port master plan and part of the interlocal agreement with the city, we've agreed not to expand outside into the residential neighborhood with port use. So what I'm requesting is authorization from the board to develop an RFP to retain the services of a commercial residential broker, real estate broker, to assist us in understanding the value of those parcels and developing a marketing strategy for disposing of those parcels.
Butch, are you aware of all these properties? You know where they're at?
Yes, sir.
And are they really of no use to the port? I mean, not.
I believe the financial piece would be very, very good for OPA. If you're able to market those and sell them.
And Dave, do you have any, just a ballpark of what we might be talking about? There's how many parcels?
1.2.
So we have 3 parcels that have 15 underlying lots of record. So, the individual lots are 25 by 100 foot lots. 2 of the parcels, the 2 on Dade Street, are zoned for medium density residential. And the one up on Second Street adjacent to the operator's office is zoned mixed use. Each one is, while they look like individual blocks, property are actually individual lots of record. So you could do
And a Scambia runs through that one up there.
the unopened or the unimproved portion of the Scambia would provide access to that function. Yeah. So there's 5, is that what? There's 15 lots of record contained within 3 separate parcels. Okay.
Any ballpark of what the value of them?
Again, I hate to throw a number out, but there's a lot of comparable sales that have taken place in downtown over the last several years. And
Anything about?
you know, they're everywhere. Again, I don't want to, play our hand negotiating wise, but, in total, probably in excess of $1 million.
Okay. Well, that's what I need to make it for.
All right,
Um,
any other questions about that?
Did you want to entertain the question?
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw him.
I saw him, but I don't know if it's proper to do that, but I'll let you, if you got something to say about that piece of property, I'm sure that's what you want to talk about.
Oh, sure.
Chip Ross, 210 North Third Street, a resident of say for Indian Beach. You said there's 15 underlying lots of record, there's underlying lots of record. Well, that's not, that is true, but it's not, it is true, but there's a density requirement.
Right.
So what you just said is not exactly true. Two of those parcels at the most could be subdivided. And you could put 4 units on them.
Yeah, we understand all that. We talked to, Kelly Gibson about it. So we know exactly how it can be done and.
Well, there, I'm going to tell you that that's of great controversy at the moment, whether those can be subdivided or not. And in fact, as it's being discussed at the next city commission meeting next Tuesday. It's got to do with one of the sections of whether you can subdivide those lots without going for the Board of Adjustments.
Well, why would that be a problem?
I don't want to get into that right now. You don't have an hour. The second point I want to point out is that the Scambia right of way goes onto the port property. That probably should be looked at also at this point, how that can be resolved, because right now the public can go onto your property.
Well, the survey that I have seen showed the portion on the terminal itself had been closed.
I went and looked for the closure. I did a public records request and I couldn't find any, if that ever being abandoned. So that's another issue. I want to consider.
Thank you.
So I think that's really the purpose of hiring, a lot of realtors to help us understand, what we've got to have want to live in. I don't think we are residential property developers or commercial developers, and so the intent would be to sell the property to somebody that has that skill.
All right, do I hear a motion to that effect?
To develop the RFP and to advertise it.
Then I'll make that motion for you. No second.
Motion been made and seconded to develop an RFP to investigate the best use of their property, those properties. Any discussion?
I want to discuss it. Would the RFP be, would we pay anything for the services of the broker, or would we be just receiving the responses, like how does,
That's why you get an RFP to find out who out there can provide those services and what it would cost. So nothing up front.
Yeah, the anticipation is that the cost that we would bear would be, on the sale of the properties through commission.
okay, but we wouldn't be committed to sell.
No.
Any,
Any further discussion?
any offers, that we would entertain would come before the commission for your approval.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, what do we got? Finances off the fund, we talked about that. No, I hear. No. Yeah. We'll get the committee report soon.
Well, we talked about it, go back up to it, the time frame moving to 5 o'clock. I don't have a problem with that. Puts me in the way. I can make a motion that we can move to 5 o'clock on Wednesdays.
Can I get a second just for discussion? I'll second. Any discussion?
Is this under committee reports?
No.
No.
That was under,
We were talking about moving
the time of the meeting.
So where are we on the agenda?
We're getting ready to go in committee report, but you backed up to that. What we'd already talked
we got
about.
out of it.
Any discussion?
So are we looking at a plan to possibly, bring up the idea about the city. Meeting in their location. I understand they have something going on right now, but, if it's a Tuesday, it's Thursday, another day of the week, I don't know, but are we looking at that? Or we're just kind of it, we're gonna say, we're gonna meet at 5 o'clock and we're gonna stay here,
Stay
be our
here.
home base
Stay here.
until.
For now, yeah, we can always change that.
I just, again, just to go with consistency, I just want, if we're gonna be, it's gonna be 5 o'clock from here on out, that's, I just.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
I'm fine with 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I just don't like moving things around, I think because of similar advantage, but.
Okay. All in favor of moving the meetings to 5 o'clock, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No,
Motion carries. 5 o'clock for our meetings from now on. All right, committee reports, Port Security, Commissioner Nelson.
All right. On the security, as I stated in my last report on 327, there was a new site supervisor installed. As of 5/12, she has resigned her position and will no longer be there. Mr. Clark and I had a conversation about this, day before yesterday. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna get in contact with management of Allied, sit down and see where they're gonna go with this. For some reason, we've had the two that's come and gone, so we're gonna see what their, fix is for this. So I'll report back to the committee as soon as we have the meeting. Hopefully, we can get it done Monday or Tuesday. And we'll get this taken care of. It's my understanding that there will be an interim. Their field supervisor filled in, so I have a feeling they've already put together a plan to cover this shift. So I'll stay in touch with them. I'll stay in touch with Mr. Clark to make sure that it is covered and that there's no service failures there.
This is something you might know, might not know, might not want to talk about. Was it a problem with OPA or was it a problem with their company?
It was a personal issue
Okay,
based on me talking to the site supervisor just the other day. She let me know that it was a decision solely on her. So there was no
problem.
reflection on Savage. There was no problem there. There was no problem on the OPA side. So it was a personal decision.
Okay,
With that being said, I'll refer back to the Customs House. I did have a conversation with Mr. Parrott. It seems like they had put that out for a third bid with no interest. So what they're doing right now, they're pretty much in limbo. I did advise Mr. Parrott that if he needed some help locating a contractor, I know one. He's gonna go to his supervisor, see if they can contact that contractor to come in and do the work. Everything has been done from the street side to the CBP office. And everything's been done from the equipment side. The old equipment's still there. The new stuff is already on site. So basically what the contractor would be responsible for, removing the old equipment, staging the new and hooking them up. So that's pretty much what the contractor will come in and do. So we'll wait for them and see where they're at with that. He did indicate that there was no other issues with the office. Everything else was fine. So on the equipment, the Liebherr container crane number 9 is still having a little bit of an issue with the hoist on the spreader. That's being worked through. Liebherr container crane number 10 had the elevator issue. That has been repaired, tested, certified, and is okay to use. So that was the report on that. The mobile harbor crane has no issues. When I was out there the other day, they were still unloading the wood pulp and the mobile harbor was being used to unload that vessel. All the trucks, the 6 OPA owned trucks, all in service, no issues with them. So, that's a good thing, and, I appreciate Stan Harrington. He told me that he would get them taken care of, and he was right on point, so I appreciate that. The warehouses, you've already heard the report from, Mr. Gilbert. I will insert his remarks, Rosanna, as part of my report, because he took my wind away. So, but I appreciate that, but thank you very much. On the warehouse number 3, the rail dock, and that would be covered under his. The tugboat, we've already discussed that. I would remind you, as I was reminded the other day, we have a drop dead date of August 31st. We all need to keep that in mind. I did have a chance to talk to the guy that conducted the survey. Very knowledgeable, 20-year Coast Guard. So he knew his stuff, and looking over his survey was very comprehensive. He done an excellent job. He was very willing to discuss it. So I think with the crew working on it today, that they'll make some headway and get this stuff to where now all we got to do is get it to the shipyard, get it done. I will tell the committee this: I am looking into the incident where it was in the shipyard, the first part of 2022, because if you look at the work, scope of the work,
Yeah, same thing.
they're redoing exactly what was already done.
Yeah.
So there's a problem.
Yeah.
And we need to find out what it is, and I plan to, if I have to go to Jacksonville to meet with them, I'll go to Jacksonville to meet with them.
Yeah, that was my question, why they didn't do it when it was there.
But I did ask this guy from TBS, why does Coast Guard have to put things in perspective the way they do about it? If you don't notify them and you do the repair, they have the right and the authority to make you take that repair out so that they can see, and then you can put it back in. That's why I said in my last update, you have to notify Coast Guard ahead of time so that they can be on site to see the same thing that the contractor sees and that the owner sees.
And they did not do that.
They did not do that. This inspection was not even addressed. But if you look at the items on the invoice that Pierre sent out, some of the same terminology is on there. So we need to look into that real carefully.
Is it something you're looking at? Okay.
Yeah.
So the reason is Opus Dame is on that tugboat. If something is not dealt with and there's an incident or an accident, we got bigger troubles. Okay. So I know Butch has got a well-experienced captain. I have all the faith in the world in Aaron Moore. He's a good captain. He stays on top of things, but he can't watch everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what these inspections are all about. So I hand it to Butch and his team, calling in a professional to go down there. And this guy, in my term, I don't think you could have found a better person to do this. I read his report. It's very thorough. And we just need to follow this through, but we need to have that tugboat taken care of by August 31st.
Okay, Ray, I really appreciate your hard work on this and keeping us updated and doing everything you're doing. So we all really appreciate that.
And I will say one other thing. There was a question to me, why does a 5-year inspection broke up to 2.5-year increments? I think maybe some of y'all may have asked me. Here's the reason. If the tugboat is in fresh water more than 6 months out of the term, it can go to 5 years. But if it's in salt water more than 6 months out of the year, it has to drop back to 2.5.
I see.
And that came from the guy from the survey.
Okay,
So it makes sense.
Yeah.
If it's in salt water, you're gonna have more corrosion and more issues than you would in fresh water. So there's your explanation.
very good. Okay, anything else? All right, FDOT, that's mine, we talked about the FDOT meeting we just had. So skip over that. Customs House, we already talked about that. Some Army Corps of Engineers, there's nothing to report there. Economic Development, Commissioner Cole.
This here, economic, I went with, Sherry Mitchell and, one of the girls in the office and, members from Callahan, the city council there. We went over to Tallahassee for rural county days. And they set up booths in the, square outside the Capitol building and usually give away gifts or things to draw attention to our county. The Tuscan Rose. What is it? Tuscan Road. They came over, the two owners, and they gave away some jellies and jams on crackers to samples for them. They gave opportunity for them to look at it, or to purchase the jars of it. But it was a very good turnout. We got a lot of response. We were able to go see all the representatives on our list, all the legislators on our list, and work up our consensus for passing some of these bills, which all of them pretty much were passed. I was able to come up with the agriculture, like on his name now, but we got 990,000 for the Northeast Florida Fair Association. And so a lot of things were accomplished, and it was a good meet. And that's about it. Okay.
Emergency Management.
Emergency management, being on their volunteer team, I work with them with the Leapers Jeepers out at the fairground. I don't even know the number, but there had to be about 300 Jeeps that showed up for that. That was a one-day event that they had. We had a legacy tree planting at the Sheriff's Department about 2 weeks ago through Keep Nassau Beautiful. And then we had, last week, we had a memorial to add 2 more names to the plaque or the flagpole to 2 guys that work with the like on their function, the inspection, the agriculture inspection guys. And so their 2 names were added to the list. And but it was a very good turnout for that as well.
All right, TCC, Commissioner Taylor.
Another report, unless David, do you have anything?
TPO.
Nothing to report on last month's TPO. We do have a TPO meeting in the morning at 10 o'clock.
Nassau Chamber.
Yeah, so tomorrow from 5 to 7, job fair for 23 different employers at the chamber in Bernardino. And the application window is open for Leadership Nassau's class of 23. And I did talk with Regina Duncan today, and she gave me, some update on what she has going on, but she wanted to come and give a presentation, just an update to the board. So I told her I would add her to the next agenda, just on happenings at the chamber. And not Chamber of Commerce related, but I didn't want to throw on the spot, but this is the regional manager for Enterprise Florida is in the audience, this meeting wise. Just want to recognize you and thank you for coming. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything, but if not, thank you for coming to the meeting. Yeah, come on up.
Been very informative listening to your meeting this evening, and I look forward to having a chance to meet all of you individually. Commissioner Cole has been very interactive in helping me interact with the Bernardino Court thus far, and Sherry Mitchell, and looking at some opportunities. One perhaps large traffic between Charleston, which is where I just relocated from, to Bernardino. No folks in Charleston well enough to make some introductions there.
Awesome, thank you. Thanks for coming.
City. We've already talked about that. Community outreach. Anybody? Anybody have any community outreach?
So we did get some emails from, Tammy, Kosak regarding federal grant funds. I think everybody was copied on the federal grants that she was interested in. And there were, I think all of them were related to, environmental improvements, efficiencies, in operations that have been, approved by the federal government. I thought those were great. Forwarded bits of information, and I know David said he was gonna follow up.
Yeah, the interesting part on those grants, one is similar to what we talked about earlier, they do require matches, and they're generally for equipment upgrades and conversions. Maybe some other things, but that's really what the focus has been on. But they're also focused largely, entirely on what they call environmental justice areas, which are generally low-income neighborhoods that are historically impacted by industrial operations near their community. So we've got to flip, and so we would have to not only convince the operator that we need their match, but we'd also have to convince the federal government that our high-income neighborhood that surrounds us has the same impacts that whether they're high income or low income, the environmental impacts are similar. But the grants really are focused on enterprise or not enterprise, but environmental justice neighborhood.
I mean, if you go along Escambia Street, though, there are adjacent communities that are impacted by the work that maybe wouldn't hit the targets that you're talking about. So, I mean, I think it's still worth, exploring. And if there is, I mean, even if the operator saying doesn't want to look at any more local match, I still think we should at least look at the grants and see if there's a fit for anything we have going on. I mean, improving efficiency and not putting as many trucks on the road and not having as many idling trucks outside of the gates. If there could be some technological investments or other things. We could.
Well, I'm sure those grants with Roach and I'm sure we'll have further conversation.
And what would be the deadline for those grants? Okay. It's usually in June, right?
I think it's exactly, I think it's like 90 days. Yeah, I'll have to look at it.
Community outreach, I got a couple of things I'll share with. The U.S. Constitution, United States Constitution Scholarship Foundation had their graduation. First of May at Lula High School, they had 53 students graduate from the program, each one getting a $2,000 scholarship. The Constitution Scholarship or the University of us has given out close to $300,000 since they started the program. And one student got $10,000. They each get $2,000 for being in the program. It's an unbelievable program that it's got set up. And these students actually learn stuff about the U.S. Constitution and what their responsibilities are to keep our Constitution and our government intact. So real proud of the ones that graduated and did that. I mentioned the honor guard that or the presentation for the honor guard that the Sheriff's Department had National Day of Prayer at Ewing Park in Callahan on the 4th of May, and on the 15th of May, which is next Monday, Barnabas is doing food distribution at the fairgrounds. So if you ever want to be a part of Barnabas who's helping out with it, then come on out.
Any other commissioners? Administrative Office Manager report.
Did you want to mention the Boy Scouts?
Yeah,
I will now. Okay. So I attended Independent yesterday. It was the American Values Luncheon
you chaired the event.
at Cherry in the event yesterday. It's the American Values Luncheon, and it's to raise money for scouting in North Florida. Traditionally, for the past several years, it's just been a standard goal of 30,000. And I think what we do, then we honor someone to be the American Values honoree. So I got roped into being the chair because I was the honoree in 2020. Apparently there's a 3-year term I didn't know about. When we honored Aaron Bean, we hit 32,000. Like the first time we really kind of hit the goal. That was in 21. Yesterday we honored Steve Simmons. And we raised $37,000 and had a biggest turnout that we've had in the 6 years hosting the event. It was anyway, great event. And I know some of you were there, some of you supported, some of you sent people. And so thank you all for coming and participating.
Yeah, they strong armed all of us to donate, but it was worth it. Well, being a former Boy Scout, I didn't have a problem with it. Okay? Yes, sir. Coach? Oh, I got y'all signed. All right,
Thank you for doing good work.
Roseanne,
My report is included in the meeting packet.
any questions for Roseanne? Do you have anything you need?
Not at this time.
Okay, good.
Mr. Chairman, could I be heard
On what item?
on the agenda? The posting of the agenda?
Yes, I'll let you speak.
President representing the Bernardina Observer, 1586 Canopy Drive. So I was preparing for the meeting and I was looking on the website for the agenda. And your agenda did not appear on the website until yesterday. State statute 120.525 essentially says you're required to post your agenda 7 days in advance of the meeting. And that the agenda is available to the public 7 days in advance of the meeting. Now, why this is important is the news leader and myself, we're here to tell your story. And we're here to inform the public about the functions of this body and exactly the business that you are conducting. You went through a series of documents that I didn't have access to. The news leader didn't have access to, such as the port director's report, your comptroller's report. So it's important that you please publish the agenda in a timely fashion. And if you could also publish the agenda packet. And you have a strong history of doing that. So I was a little surprised that it wasn't done this time. So if you could please do that in the future, greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Roseanne, when did you post the agenda?
I posted it Monday, I believe. And when we took the ethics in commission,
Right,
Mrs. Bach told us it doesn't have to be posted until 24 hours before.
24 hours is what we were told. Now, what statute did you?
I got you. Are you referring to City Attorney Tammy Bach?
Yes,
Well, she's incorrect. It's statute, for your record, 120.525. I have a copy of it here, has my notes on it. I'm glad to provide it for your meeting record.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
120.525.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
There was just a lot of changes going back and forth with our agenda, and what we were going to put on it, so I'm sure that was.
or we have to do with those. We can always change it.
Yep.
Okay. All right,
Mr. Chairman.
yes,
I just need to comment. I was posting the agenda 7 days prior, but I was told I didn't have to. So I'm just doing what I was told.
All right, we'll research it.
Well, I would be in favor of posting earlier just because it's better,
Right.
right? Like to hold ourselves to a higher standard.
That's why I
Well,
give you guys a deadline for
right.
agenda
The thing
items.
is, if you want something on the agenda, you have to get it to her in time. A lot of you don't do that. I'll tell you now, I've seen it. You ask for stuff and you don't submit anything. So if you come in here with a blank agenda or nothing that you want to contribute, but gotta get it to her when she asks for it. Okay? All right, let's move on. Any other items to be brought by commissioners?
I did have another item. So on the new business, I asked for the OPA financials and ARPA funds to be added. And I know Pierre did do a a bit of discussion about that. But I don't think we discussed it in that session. So I just wanted to revisit that. If that's okay. So we're coming up on our budgetary cycle. And Pierre has sent us all emails about the financial situation with the board. And at the last meeting, we had some revelations of financial expenditures that I think are not wholly surprising. And we have maybe kicked the can a bit on addressing our lack of revenue. So we've received feedback that the main areas of revenue that we thought we might be able to pursue are not tenable currently. It doesn't mean they may not be in the future, but currently they're not tenable. And so what I would like to ask is for our executive director and Pierre to come together with a plan for us at the next meeting. Because I think they are capable of doing that, of looking at the suggestion and coming with a plan for revenue. And some of the items, you've seen them on the director's report, new business coming into the port, other potential revenue sources, but I think we need to set a deadline for that of the next meeting. So you all may not want to do that, but I just wanted to get consensus on that.
And I think that given our current situation of where we are, I mean, it is troubling, and this will be my first budget process, and my ignorance with this board, I don't know how that budget process goes. I know how it goes with the county. It's you direct staff to look at items. You yourself as a commissioner, you look at items, and if you're in trouble like we are, you make cuts where necessary. In our situation, we can look for revenue opportunities where we can. So I think it's a great idea. If we weren't already doing that, I think it's a great idea for Dave and Peter to get together. And I made notes here to go through line by line as well, just to see what we do, because this is it's bad. We have a great opportunity to do something big with OPA, but not in our financial situation. It's pretty scary.
And by next meeting, I didn't mean the May meeting, I meant the first meeting in June.
I'm not sure I understand what you want, but you want revenue opportunity. I mean, the issue is legal spending. Obviously, we can sell the land. Get more traffic usable. I'm not sure that there's any other near term. Obviously, we have the ARPA fund, and obviously part of the budget will be when the ARPA funds are going to run out based on our current spending level. Obviously, the memo, I don't know that the other commissioners saw the memo. I think it only went to you and to the lawyer and maybe Commissioner Fullwood, unless he shared it to the rest of the board. But essentially, the lawyer's been put on notice that at some point, as I said, I think I said this before, there will be no more funds available to pay his fees past this date, once we incur this amount of legal fees. There are no other revenue opportunities unless we don't want to sell land to pay legal fees. That would be a horrible decision, I think.
So, I'm not sure I understand what you would like David and I to discuss. If we have to meet Dave, we can discuss it. If you have any other ideas besides that, but I'm not sure that there's any, I don't see any near-term revenue opportunities. I said, I think I've reiterated several times, and if this comes as a shock to you, the legal spending has been an issue for a year and a half at least. So it shouldn't be anything new. We're coming to the end where it doesn't matter, we're running out of money. We won't be able to pay for it. So there's no fix to it.
Yeah, the legal spending was an issue before, but it was at a different scale. Like we always thought it was an issue. I think since the previous operator, that was what you told us. You said, since the previous operator, legal spending has been exceeding budget. Like far in excess of the budget, and now we are in a slightly different. Right.
The amount of legal spending that you were incurring a year and a half ago was not sustainable. And we've reached the point where we're at the cliff edge. I said, there's not going to be any more fees to pay the lawyer. The lawyer wants to work for free. That's his choice.
Well, I think without going too far, without Patrick being here, I do think part of his request this evening, or an attempt to try to mitigate some of that.
Well, if it's gonna be solved, it'll be solved by the five of us, because that's our responsibility. And I would echo what Pierre said. We are at cliff's edge. And if we are not real careful, it's our responsibility. I hate to say this because I'm one of the new guys on the block. We got ourselves into this. It's up to us to get us out. Okay? We're gonna have to make some tough decisions. Commissioner Taylor, you said it. And we are gonna have to make some tough decisions, and we're gonna have to bite the bullet because we have a responsibility to the taxpayers of this county to do the right thing. And doing the right thing, paying our bills, pay the people we owe at whatever venue we have to take, and learn that lesson, not to get ourselves into that again. I'll leave it at that.
It's also up to us to try to come up with other revenue opportunities. It's not just our executive director. We're responsible for that too. And I can tell you, I've done a lot of research and spoken with Economic Development Board. I'm in touch with them all the time. And, people don't want to use our services. We have no other option. We have one way to gain revenue, and that's our bonding capability. And people don't want to use it. We can't find somebody to use it. We've got to find other methods. And I know for a fact that David has been searching. I know for a fact that we've talked to the operator about it, and there are things that we're trying to work on with the operator to solve some of these problems. But we can't help what the property appraiser has done. Someone put him up to that. I have all the confidence in the world about that, and I know who it is. I'm not saying anything, but that was not his doings. But that's something hopefully will get settled, but we still have the legal fees to pay for that. We're obligated to do that. But hopefully we're gonna get a judgment out of it soon, and that'll take care of itself. Now, the other lawsuit with the city, we're working on that too. And I can't tell you what's been done or what hasn't been done, but we're working on it. We're gonna negotiate with the city, sit down with them, and try to figure out a solution. But still, we have those legal fees up to that point that we have to take care of.
I just want to clarify, or I just want to make this one comment, since you have two reporters here, I would go on record, but, for what you said, I wanted to clarify what you said, but I can assure you that, nobody's gonna put Mike Hickox up to doing something, that he doesn't believe in. And he's not gonna get himself into, and I'm trying to be careful because of a lawsuit, but he's not gonna do something just because somebody said, hey, you should do this, or put him up to it. So I just wanted, I don't want it to come across as there's some sort of a backdoor deal and somebody saying, hey, you should do this, and that's why, you know, he's
That's not what I meant.
doing his job, which is what he's
If
doing.
I spoke wrong, that's not what I meant. Someone brought something to his attention and he acted on it, which he has the legal right to do, which he thought he was in the right. I don't have any qualms about that. I think he was wrong.
We don't need to get into it. I just wanted to clarify.
I'm not
I didn't
gonna
want to come across.
Okay, that's
Sort of way.
all right, good. All right,
So I wanted to circle back to the revenue thing, just because when we hired David, I'm in good faith to him because he has worked very hard. A lot of the obstacles he's come up against are not because he hasn't worked very hard. He's put in a lot of time, probably more than a full-time job. And now we are coming up against those very real constraints. And so they are what they are. And I think we need to just be like honest about the fact that certain of these ideas are not actually going to be viable. And so what are the options? And so whatever he can come forward with at the next meeting, I think we need to commit that we are going to make some sort of decision in our budgeting process that is a sustainable budget, to adopt a sustainable budget that matches what resources we actually have and avenues that we can pursue under our charter and under our agreement that are sustainable. And so I think we need to give him that opportunity. He's been here, he said not quite a year, but in his agreement, it says that, you know, it'll renew annually based on the will of the board and based on our ability to pay. And I think we need to have that honest conversation like we did when we hired him, and Chairman Fullwood, you're the one who said it. He said, that person's job will be to find the revenue that funds their salary. And he's working really hard to do that. And I think we need to look at the work product and figure out what we can do.
okay, we're gonna have a budget workshop sometime next month. Don't know the date yet. But no, next month.
Okay. So we want to discuss it. Come on, your workshop.
No. But I'll let you know the date and time and place.
Okay, so
And
this
we'll
will be in
discuss it.
June.
After the June meeting, so we're gonna have a draft budget for you.
Yeah, we have to get a draft budget and Pierre,
The next
that out
meeting.
next month.
And then we'll have a budget workshop after that. Still leaves us, the budget has to be approved at the September meeting. So we have essentially 3 months to work on any issues with the budget.
Okay, so so when is your contract renewal? Because does it auto renew, David?
With fiscal year.
And when is that?
October.
Okay, so, but I thought the anniversary date was in June.
No, so for the first year, it was a 14, 15, 16-month contract, 16-month, I guess. And then it was renewed annually for the fiscal year.
So I just didn't want to come up against like the auto renew, because I know it says auto renew and then it says at the will of the board. So I don't know. And then, but I just wanted to make sure we align with that, because you said you were gonna do like and you're gonna do an annual review of your performance, but then also some sort of work.
The contract requires an annual review in August,
Okay.
by the end of August.
Okay,
And I would just say, you know, it's no secret that the vast majority of time spent this past year has been on the master plan. Right? And what I have made the decision to do was to not get ahead of that planning process and not put in place activities until the board agreed on what that master plan was going to look like. So it took far longer than I think any of us wanted to, but I think for good reason, and again, it was a good product as a result of it. So some of those revenue opportunities, whether it's related to the 3 parcels that we just talked about this evening, or the waterfront parcel that's underutilized currently, you know, those are all things that are opportunities that we're working on, that we're looking at opportunities either for immediate cash flow or long-term income opportunities. And the same thing with continuing to work with potential customers on using OPA's capabilities. And again, without disclosing the people that I'm working with, I'm happy to talk to you privately about it. I don't want to put them out there now because we're still in a very early throes, but there are some changes that have happened in the market very recently that I think will provide us with some potential opportunity. And again, I'm happy to talk to you offline about it. But we're continuing every day to beat the bushes and look for these opportunities.
By our next meeting, in June, you'll have some budget numbers for us. That's correct, that's what you're telling us. So, a budget workshop on the 28th would be okay to have at that time. Then we've got then to work on the budget. We've got August to work on the budget. September, we need to pretty much nail it down. And have to adopt it in September. Okay?
So I think 30 days is enough time to, some sort of plan for revenues. And I'm specifically talking about what we tasked our executive director with when we hired him, which was to identify sources of revenue. And if you don't want to disclose names, that's fine. If it's XYZ, John Doe shipper, and this is how much revenue it's going to bring in, this is the commitment. I would just like to see some understanding. I know you came up with a few other ideas, and the operator declined to take those ideas and said they do not have to take our suggestions for business or pay us over them. And so I don't see that as being like a viable thing to keep talking about unless there's some new information. Right? And you have been doing so much work and working really hard and calling us and letting us know what you're doing. But at the end of the day, I have to look at the taxpayers and say, this is why we pay $130,000 a year for this. This is the benefit to our county. This is the benefit to OPA. Rosanna we can't pay for her health insurance. Right? We aren't paying our legal fees as they accrue. And we need to be honest about that. I know that's difficult, but can we put a deadline on it?
I think we need to accelerate that and move as quickly into it as possible. It's only going to get worse if we don't. We need to address it. We need to correct it and move forward. Some people would say it's not good to sell property and use that money for expenses. I say it is, because we have an obligation to pay for what we get. And if we can't afford it, then we don't need it. And that's the bottom line. So let's do what's necessary. It's a hard decision. It's hard to sit here and say, you know what, we got to make some tough decisions. But it's the right thing to do. When we go out in public, I don't want to hear people say, what are y'all doing? I go into a restaurant. I have 5 or 6 people come by. How's it going out there? How are y'all progressing? I'm looking for the back door. Okay? Not to be funny, but you couldn't run your household budget the way we're running this one. We'd all end up in the street. Let's take it to heart. Let's make the decisions. Let's get it cleaned up. Let's move forward.
And we'll do that during the budget process.
I look forward to it.
Okay.
But the budget process doesn't happen until September, October. Okay, so that doesn't go into effect until the new fiscal year.
October 1st.
Right. Okay.
When we originally hired the port director, we had budgeted for his position to last until July 2024. We had enough money to do that. not to harp on this point. There's only one reason why today that's not true. Okay, I'm not gonna harp on it again.
Legal fees.
The port has enough revenue, other than the port director, has enough revenue to sustain itself, to pay its expenses that it needs with the fixed fee that it receives. Other than the legal. I don't want to harp on that point, but that's the issue.
It is.
Okay, so again, there was plenty of money and, the plan was for this position to have 3 years to find those revenue sources.
It was 2 years and then there was a gap where there was no funding.
Well, so, but it was till July 2024. That was like I said, because the ARPA funds were gonna end, we were gonna have built up a reserve that was gonna take us past 2024. That was the original thinking when we filled the port director's position, and the port director, we're gonna have essentially 3 years. We did make the contract renewable each year, not a full 3 year, because the original contract proposal was just a 3-year contract, and we changed that. Just again, for performance and for review and for the board and for budget services. So just, again, I don't want to harp on this point, I don't want to keep harping, but the issue is clear to me. It has been clear for a long time. You have the money and you're spending it. In theory. If you didn't have the money, would you have found a different solution?
That's a challenge, that's a challenging statement.
Yeah, and Dave, you've done a good job, great job, and I appreciate what you've done, but, it's your mission and probably convoluted this past year, working on so much with the master plan. So now we've got that done, we can move forward, and you can proceed with what you're doing. Some of the ideas that you had didn't work out because of the master plan. So we come up with something different. So you keep working on it. We're gonna get there. I have confidence in it. I think we're gonna do great.
Well, we're not gonna solve anything here tonight. We will have a budget workshop where we'll discuss all this, figure out solutions. David, do what you can with Miriam's request.
It's a board consensus request, a request from one commissioner. And it's no effect. It's either a consensus item or it's not.
Well, what's your thoughts on that, David?
Yeah, I'm happy to provide whatever information you guys find useful. These opportunities that we're working on don't evolve overnight. And virtually the first one to tell you how long it takes to put together a party deal. They don't happen overnight. They take a lot of effort and work and good luck a lot of time. Right, in terms of timing and the customers you're trying to work with. I can only tell you the areas that I'm focused on and trying to find ways to generate revenue, but none of it is going to happen in 30 days. These things take time.
They have a full-time business development person who they pay on their payroll to bring in business, and they told us they don't have to take anything.
They don't have to watch.
Take anything we bring them under the operating agreement. They don't have to take any opportunities we bring. them.
But there may be other opportunities.
Lawson, I don't know what you're saying today that because of that. What
There
different?
may be other opportunities that we can generate
Because it
outside.
takes a long time to bring in a cargo deal, and I'm just saying, I don't understand what that has to do with the conversation.
Well, because some of the deals that I might be talking about may or may not involve the operator. So, but they still take time to develop and explore and figure out.
As part of David's contract. There's a review, whether that be, obviously, we can move that up to July if Dave's willing. But, there's a call for a review of both what he's accomplished and what his goals are for the next year that has to be approved by this board. I think that's what, understanding the value is, okay, what have we accomplished in the last 12, 14 months that he's been here? And then what are the goals? Or what are you gonna be working on for the next 12 months? Or whatever that time period is. That's part of the contract. That's part of the agreement that he signed, and that's part of what he's getting ready to, whether that happens in August or if we can move that up a month or whatever, but. And I think that's, what you're trying to get at is, what are we getting out of this? Or I think, if I understand, what are we getting out of this for this investment that we're making? And I think that's what he needs to justify in this upcoming review that's coming up of, well, like I said, what's been accomplished and what's the goal for the next 12 months.
Okay. So in June will be a year.
I'd have to go back and look at the actual contract to see when the timing was and all that stuff, but yeah, I mean, it definitely included a review and a goal for the next year as part of the agreement, so.
Okay, I would like to add that to the June agenda. The first meeting in June, that's a month away. I think that's enough time.
Any other comments?
And I really appreciate you for and all the work you've done.
All right, our budget meeting, first budget meeting will be the 28th. Send you the time and the place. As soon as I talk to Patrick. Okay? Anything else to come before the board?